Now, the great thing about this movie is the concept of the Ouija now leads us into our next discussion.
That is true. There's also a little board action going on in those movies. Or in this movie.
Or in the series. Oh, no, there is a board in this movie. Yes, there is. Now, we're going to take a look at one of the strangest yet coolest Chinese horror movies that have come out in a little while.
Definitely.
It was originally set to come out in 2020 as Bunshin Saba versus Sadako 3. Some reason it got held up by, I believe it was Youku, were the distributors of this one. Okay. Because that's where I saw it. I saw it on Youku's channel on YouTube. And then they retitled it to Bunshin Saba Hoichi the Earless. So as you and I were discussing beforehand, Hoichi is part of Japanese mythology about a lute player who was playing for a dead general and was getting called. Did a bit of reading. So the story of Hoichi is that he was called every night to play to this dead general. And one night, the priest of his local village followed him and said to him, "You're playing for a devil. There's a curse on you. We need to get rid of it." So in order to do that, he covered Hoichi's body head to toe in sutras, little characters. That night, the demon's guard came to collect Hoichi, and he couldn't see him because the suture rendered him invisible. The only thing he could see was his ears. So he ripped his ears off. Now, Hoichi, in absolute pain, deciding not to scream or cry or anything, was later found by the priest, who realized that he made a big mistake by not putting sutras on his ears. Thus, Hoichi is now earless. And the legend goes that he went on to become a very famous musician.
Yes. So could you now explain how that is used in the film, in how Bunshin Saba is gonna, confront that Hoichi?
And this is it. It never happens.
Exactly.
It never happens at all. As we saw, the closest we ever get to anything resembling Hoichi is the wooden statue that Yume finds, that the sutures get activated on it when the ghost hunter touches it. Otherwise, there is nothing to do with Hoichi in it. And
Hoichi's not in it.
It's not in it.
So nothing to do with it.
No. So the wooden statue that the girl finds is actually Kumanthong, a Thai deity.
Exactly.
And by her accidentally making a blood sacrifice to the statue, she unleashes the spirit of Jarona, which I Googled Jarona, and that doesn't exist at all. So again, the scriptwriters have made something up. So what we end up having is Jarona, a spirit of a Kumanthong, is released into this house, and she's very strong. And Yume, the girl, realizes that she is being haunted. So she calls upon two hilarious ghost hunters. These two guys, they are absolutely hilarious characters. And they realize that she's very powerful. And they call Bisian the Pen Fairy, also known as Bunshin Saba, for assistance. But they realize that Bisian is not strong enough to defeat her. And they think that the only way they can beat Jarona is if they can get Sadako and Pen Fairy to give up their differences, join together, and fight her. So there's a hilarious scene where she watches a different version of the tape in order to get Sadako to come out of the TV. And did you notice when Sadako comes out, the Chinese have to have a piss take on Japan? She falls off the table when she comes out.
She does that in all the films. She just drops out of the screen. She just plops on the ground. You see, and then in this one, it's extra funny because you see her feet like fall out of the screen. Yeah, so that is exactly what happens. And I was so surprised by this movie. Just like I was surprised with Zombie Fight Club, like, hey, that stuff can be done in Taiwan. I was surprised by this movie about this ghost battle concept that I didn't really know about beforehand. And then when I saw this movie, I was surprised by everything. I thought at first is going to be this very typical ghost film with a long-haired ghost girl, but then all of a sudden it's like a battle between a Sadako and then a red dress Sadako. Basically, if you say it like very flat, it's like two long-haired Sadakos beating the shit out of each other with telekinesis and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing, this is great, what is this? And it became kind of like Chinese Ghost Story with the effects they're using. But what I noticed first from this movie is that the set design is really well done. It looks like a high quality movie. The movie looks really good. And besides the set design being well done, and the color correction is well done with the teal and orange, and the cinematography looks good. The women are beautiful. I mean,
Yume is gorgeous.
In Zombie Fight Club, they're hot. But this is like, no, these are beautiful, you know. These are a completely different level, or let's say a different caliber. But the movie looks great. And then I was so surprised by this twist of the Chinese Ghost Story ghost battle, let's say, with all the wind machines and the fogs and the
flying
craziness.
stakes.
Yeah, and then of course the Bunshin Saba's power of throwing pencils.
Oh God, yes,
and stakes. But then what I thought was even better, and what I wanted Zombie Fight Club to do, this movie did. This was the movie that made me like giggle like a little schoolgirl.
Oh, absolutely.
When at one point they were like, oh, this one ghost, because there's basically three ghosts from different origins. So we have a Japanese one,
franchises,
we have a Chinese one, and we have a Thai one. Franchises, actually, yeah. And then the Thai one is the main bad guy here, and then we have the Chinese one, who's more in the Chinese sense a god or a deity, a protector of the young girls, let's say. But she's not strong enough, and then they want someone else to help, just like you said, because it's like they only used half of the energy to defeat the Thai ghost, and therefore they needed more energy from a different ghost to help. And then I was so surprised, and it made me smile in a very positive way when they were talking about, we need another one. What are we supposed to do? How about we watch the cursed tape?
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, cursed tape? Because I didn't know anything about this versus Sadako thing. So I only knew this red, the red dress ghost, and then this Thai one. And I was so surprised because I didn't know that Sadako was in it, or at least a version of Sadako.
I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you at all.
It was great. And then the fact that when they were discussing it, that these two, the professor and his wacky sidekick, they're like, I don't want to watch this tape. And then the lead says, very heroic, I'll watch the cursed tape. I'm like, well, we're gonna watch the cursed tape. I was like, all right, let's do this. And then you see this rip-off tape from The Ring, but then without any ring in it.
None of the footage of it, completely different.
He comes out of the screen, and like you said, he flops out of the screen, so he just falls out of it. And then there's all of a sudden a battle of three ghosts. I'm like, what's going on here? And then it just went off the rails from there. And I thought it was great. I didn't expect it. I didn't know this existed, and I loved it. This movie did what I hoped Zombie Fight Club could do.
I think that's the thing. I am with very Chinese happy horror.
And thankful that you introduced this movie to me.
That's the thing with Chinese horror. It's a very crappy genre. You cannot make a decent horror movie in China. So they tend to try and do something outrageous to at least make it remotely fun. Now, I paused the slideshow on this shot because this is the Ghost Hunter's attic lair. Yeah. And you can see there's that big, huge a machine in the background that they use to get all this plasma energy. There you could see Sadako in the frame, and they're just looking at her like, what the hell is she doing here? He's standing on the table. I don't know. I can't remember why he's standing on the table. There's that strange cage that they use to kind of channel her energy. And if you can see on the table, there's a makeup mirror, and there's I think there's the helmet that she wears to channel everything.
So in other words, this is just a production still then.
Yeah, this is it. But there's also the set that's supposed to be in Japan, where she's walking through the village. where she first comes out of the well, or whatever their type of well, looks great as well. As does that scene of the girl combing her hair, and she turns around and that samurai is just right next to her. Like, that's a legitimate jump scare that you don't see coming. That's
what I also cool. Like this what I'm talking about. This Chinese long black hair waving in the wind action stuff you always see in the 80s and in those Shaolin type films, let's say. That's why I reference Chinese Ghost Story with this movie, because it has that same type of effect, let's say. And then I noticed it in the beginning immediately when we had this opening scene where basically it starts with our lead wanting to jump off a bridge, and then her sister, I believe it's her sister, with
Control
a long
freak
red dress grabs her. And even that scene, I know it's so clearly CG, I mean green screen, but even that scene had her long black hair waving in the wind, and it just looked good. It just was just well shot. It's just very appealing to look at, and it's just well made. So I do applaud this film for that. And now, then you told me that Bunshin Saba, that this was actually part 3 of this series, that is actually Bunshin Saba versus Sadako 3.
Yeah, you can see the posters. The original posters are still advertising it as part 3.
And when you told me that, I was like, I have to see 1 and 2. So I was sold. I have to see 1 and 2.
And now the thing
is that I must say one thing though, and that's about the 3, let's say, or Hoichi the Airless, who's not in it, is the fact that I thought the first Ghost battle was really good, but I did think that the Ghost battles after that were a little quick. Less. A little quick, a little less good, let's say. I wanted more of these slower action poses, more of them actually hand-to-hand combat instead of this flash.
They kind of chase each other around the room, as just kind of blurs.
And I do understand why this is not labeled as part 3 at this point, because the Bunshin Saba is a different Bunshin Saba than in 1 and 2.
And that makes sense once you've seen the end of this one.
But all 3 movies do the similar thing. So if you go back and watch 1 and 2, you'll see all the things that are in this one as well. Like
beautiful.
The structure is similar. Some story points are similar. The fact that they always go to the realm of the ghost at the end is in all 3 films.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So what you said, that you love that scene, that they basically do that in all 3. And that's where the final battle comes in. And because I was like, oh my God, this movie would be great for a remake, because I just want to ramp up the action. But then I saw part 2, and I must say, part 2 fixed that lust I had for a better battle, let's say, because number 2, in my opinion, has the best ghost battles of the 3 films.
Now, you said part 2 you found on YouTube, is that right?
Yes.
All right, so I might try and look that up as well.
It's on YouTube with subs. It's of course illegal as hell, but it is.
Where else can you find these movies? Seriously?
Where else are you going to find this? Yeah. I mean, I'm also pretty sure they don't even have the rights to use the name Sadako anyway. So, and then Bunshin Saba is also based on a Korean movie franchise. Terrific so movie. They just stole all kind of names there of famous franchises. But I must say that the second one has slightly better battles, and even a big ass battle at the end. So definitely watch number 2.
You're selling it well to me.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Well. The first one, I guess you have to watch it just to see for completeness, let's say, just where it started. But I do think that the first one was made when Sadako versus Kayako came out, but they hadn't seen the movie. And then, because I think that the second one is closer to Sadako versus Kayako, how it's presented. So I think they made the first one just knowing that the film came out in order to capitalize on it. Yeah. But then when it came out, then used it for part 2. And then, but I do think, and I have to say, and I have to compliment, I do think they have their own identity now with the third one. And that's probably also why they didn't call it 3, because it's a different Bunshin Saba, and also because it's more interconnected with the story, that it's like not really a ghost, but the sister, let's say, to ruin it, to spoil it. But
if anyone knows Chinese horror movies, they know they're not going to. None of the ghosts are real, so it's just obvious that they're not real. And in this movie, the way that this movie ends, even though it has to use one of the 3 approved endings, is actually really good. I didn't feel really cheated watching this one. I felt like when it ended, I thought that was a perfect ending. That made a lot of sense.
And I love the time travel aspect. I mean, they didn't have to do that. It was just, you know, they set things up in the beginning, and then when you come back to it, it's like, oh, you know, it's cute. It's like a little Back to the Future moment.
It's a nod. Yeah, it's a nod to everything. But with the name Bunshin Saba, though, there's a lot of Chinese films with that name. And this movie translates to Pen Fairy Talk. So it doesn't even use the Bunshin Saba name. And there's 3 Chinese Bunshin Saba movies from the same director as the Korean one.
Yes.
They're just called a Ouija board, which I think is what the Korean movie translates to, a Ouija board. So Bunshin Saba is now just some kind of generic brand name for these movies. I think because they know that no one knows who the Pen Fairy is. And I've told you this before. I've seen Sadako and Bisian, the Pen Fairy, fight in other movies. And the joke was that they've made Bisian a good character. So she's Chinese. She represents China. She's a good character. Sadako is Japanese. She's evil. And, you know, it's that whole Battle of Nanjing thing. I think that China's got to get their revenge on Japan somehow.
And the same thing happens in all 3 movies. It is like every time they summon the Bunshin Saba with that Ouija board, and then in the background you have Sadako coming out of a phone or coming out of a screen, and then the hands go close to the Chinese lead girl, and then last minute, there she is.
Bisian's there to save the day. Yeah. Now, according to my wife, and maybe your EP a producer can verify this. Bisian is a game usually played by teenage girls, and according to my wife, she played it once to try and figure out something about a boyfriend, and freaked out when the actual pen started moving. So the idea of Bisian is based on a real story or a real game that teenagers play, which is why she appears in so many of these Chinese horror films.
And of course, like in the movie, you have to draw a circle to know that she's there, right? So when Karen asked about her boyfriend, they draw a round circle. That was you.
This was 25 years ago, so it's far before she met me.
It was already predicted.
Oh boy,
round circle was you.
Well, that's probably why Karen said she ran away screaming after it happened, and she never wanted to do Bunshin Saba again. So when I run around the house going Bisian, Bisian, she goes, "Stop doing that. It's not funny."
And there's a nice comment in the chat that so basically Bunshin Saba is the Chinese Ouija. So Ouija China.
Yes, that's right. Ouija China. There we go.
There we go. Good link. I must say I want to make one final comment on on this movie, and it's just to glorify it more because I am all for this movie. I went back after the Bunshin Saba versus Sadako 1 and 2, and then this one, which is they removed the 3 and called it a non-relevant Hoichi the Earless. I went to Sadako versus Kayako because I thought, oh, if this started it all, it must be really, really cool. If that is leading all these movies in China, then they were so inspired, right? It's really bad. Sadako versus Kayako is actually quite bad. Bad in a way that it's in the writing, in my opinion, is just it's a little silly and it's a little simple. And it's only about Sadako. It's I don't understand. Sure, Kayako is in there, but it's all about Sadako. And to be honest, when they don't meet until the last end.
Oh, spoiler! I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet. Okay, then I cannot say anything. But
well, you can say a little bit.
Well, what I wanted to say is that Sadako destroys Kayako in 2 seconds.
Jeez. Look, I know it was bad. Everything I've heard about it has been said it is a bad film. So a final question
but not
to you
only
then.
that, I just want to say one last thing about that is that not only, but she isn't really destroyed yet because of course it's Japan, so none of them can really win because they're both icons in Japan. So what do you think happens at the end? You can
leave yourself open for a sequel like Freddy versus Jason did.
It didn't close exactly. It actually it just ended in a ghost attack, let's say. So no, but what would you do if one cannot win from the other?
What would I do as a fan?
As a fan,
I would be pretty pissed off.
No, but I mean, no, in the movie, you have two of them, but none of them can win. So what would be the Japanese way, henshin, in order to progress this story? Kamen Rider, henshin. They merged together into one evil.
Oh, are you kidding? No. Oh, no. And what do they call themselves?
I don't know, but they are just, one long-haired white dress thing.
Oh, that's awful.
And now they just, and it also ends in an attack. So you think that, they won. They defeated it. Nope. It just ends.
I don't think I want to watch this now.
I thought that was interesting. Like, that's a very Japanese thing to do. It's like, King Kong or Godzilla. Well, none of them can really win. So let's make them become, one.
and make them destroy Hong Kong for some reason.
Yeah. No, but that's not the bad part. The bad part is not so much the blending or the fact that Sadako is so overpowered. And it's actually that Kayako is a very, very minute side character. It's really the writing and the presentation is a little silly and juvenile, in my opinion. So that makes it not as good. That is just, the presentation is just not as good. And this is my point, is that I heard you say, well, at least Sadako versus Kayako, the original Japanese, must be way better than the Bunshin Saba versus Sadako, right? The shitty Japanese movies. No. I think Bunshin Saba is way better than Sadako versus Kayako.
Because they have no affinity to any of these characters.
They don't love any of it.
Yeah, they don't love. And as you could see from this movie that we watched, mythology means nothing to them. Hoichi, the earless, was just thrown on there. Sadako's backstory means nothing. They made up a name for Kumanthong.
But one thing is very interesting. It does feel to me that this Bunshin Saba versus Sadako is only based on the Sadako versus Kayako and not on the original Ring series or the Grudge series at all.
So because they can just ditch the mythology.
The tape in the Sayako versus Kayako is the same as in the Chinese one. Yeah. And did you, by the way, notice? I think it was in the third one, because I saw all three, and you must have seen it too. Or they did it in the first one, but in one of the three, and I cannot pinpoint which one it was, but they actually stole a shot from the Ring and put it in the movie.
No.
Yeah, there is shots from... Yes, there is this very famous eye close-up, just straight out of the Ring, and they put it in the movie.
Oh, I don't remember that in this film. In Hoichi
then it must have
been
been the first one. I didn't see it in the second one. They probably did it in the first one, but they also changed the lore of Sadako in Sadako versus Kayako. Because how many days does it take before you die after you see the tape?
7 days.
Yes. In Sadako versus Kayako, it's 2 days.
Oh, hey, she's worked out how to fast track it. Nice.
Yeah, she stepped up her game, right? She's
48 hours.
No time. So
that's
2 days.
The short attention span of this generation, is it?
Yeah, I guess it. Yeah, maybe. But the tape is different and actually more similar to the Bunshin Saba versus Sadako one. But yeah, I noticed that they shamelessly ripped off some scenes straight out of the Ring and just put it in their movie. But still, I think that Bunshin Saba versus Sadako 2 and Bunshin Saba Hoichi the Earless are way better than Sadako versus Kayako.
Thumbs up from both of us then.
Yes.
Before we move on to next week's movie, I have one small question for you, and I want you to answer it in 20 words or less.
20 words or less.
How do you make a good spirit battle movie then? Is it possible?
Well, Bunshin Saba versus Sadako 2 was pretty good. I think so. That one is a good example. Watch that one, then you'll see a good one.
Okay.
I think that the one we're talking about now, the name that's on the screen right now, that's a good one. So, and I just come in fresh, so don't ask me how to make a good. Well, the only thing I can say is if you watch this one, the Bunshin Saba Hoichi the Earless, and then watch Chinese Ghost Story, it needs more Chinese Ghost Story. So more of that. Yeah, so more of the flying stuff, more of the I guess more how you call that, the more of the Wu-Tang, more of the.
Actually, I've got some trivia for you. Chinese censorship has evolved so much since Ghost Story has come out that the last remake of the movie, which was The Enchanting Phantom that came out a year and a half ago, they've changed so much of her mythology that she's virtually a different story. So they've changed so much of what she's allowed to do, of how she's allowed to take souls, about what the Black Mountain Demon, a witch, can do. It's yeah. So making a movie with this kind of censorship, it's tough. And
the only thing I'm going to say is, the only thing I want to say is that you and I, Dan, we have to make a couple of these, and then we'll show how it's done.
Yeah, but ours might get banned.
Ours might as well maybe not even be just as good, or maybe, you know, we're not Chinese. Maybe it's
if we're going to make movies that are getting banned, we're going to go all out, absolutely all out. Now,